Today we're here with Justin Flegel, a modern-day music journalist and host of Anywhere the Needle Drops, a Red Check production. Justin, welcome to Theory One Studios' basement.
Yeah, here we are.
How's it going?
It's exciting. We're here celebrating 5 years of doing these mixtapes and just celebrating music, and it's awesome to be able to get to do this, and that you even want to hear me talk about this. So yeah, it's fun.
Well, I've been a fan of your work since day one of getting to town and all the projects you've had a hand in, which cultivates the music scene here in Michiana and northern Indiana and southern Michigan. But what kept you going for 5 years on a virtual mixtape?
Honestly, it's just the love of the music. So it has pushed me to be constantly exploring new sounds, new music, new genres, what the kids are listening to, that sort of a thing. I'm at an age now in my 40s where I think a lot of people maybe go stagnant in various things, music being one of them. The joke is always like the music of your high school days is the best music, or that sort of a thing. And for me, I've always been interested in music and following the new music trends, but doing these mixtapes, it's forced me to continue on and see what's new, what's coming out, who are these new artists. And we live in such a magical time of music where so many artists get a chance to make their music. That's what has sustained me. It's just the exploration of it, the love of the music. Yeah,
of course. As a history buff, I'm curious to know what kicked this all off. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and I don't recall. I have a couple of memories. At my day job, I had shifted into a new office. I'd gotten a cushy little, cozy, private office, and I remember just the idea striking me at some point. I don't know specifically where it came from, but I thought, I need to be sharing. I'm always making mixed CDs for people back in the day when that was still a thing.
Yeah.
And I want to find a way to share that music now in the modern age of streaming and playlists and all that sort of a thing. So it kind of hit me. Oh, I'm sitting in my office one day, in between work stuff, and just thought, I'll release a weekly playlist just of what I'm listening to. No themes, no rules, just whatever I've been listening to. Might be old, might be new, who knows? But
right.
Yeah.
So that touches on, there was no process of picking, or has it evolved over the years?
Yeah.
You give yourself rules after a while?
It's definitely evolved. Initially it started with very specifically, I would just go through kind of the history in the iTunes or whatever, what I'd been listening to the last week, and just find the most played songs. Yeah. I expanded on that eventually because, one, I have some songs I go to all the time, and I didn't want to keep on putting the same songs on the playlist. But also, I'm always exploring new music, and I wanted to share some of the new cool finds that I was digging into. And so I very much focused on finding new music as a part of the process, not just bringing in stuff that I'd always known and listened to.
Right.
And when I say new, I don't mean new necessarily newly published, which is often the case, but I also not new to me. So I might be doing a deep dive into Dylan or into Queen, or I did a deep dive into Madonna a couple years back. So maybe it's just a song that I discovered from that catalog that I've been listening to a lot. So yeah.
That brings me to, not to jump too far ahead, but the first song on your playlist today, when you release it, is Common, his song "Be," the intro.
Yeah.
And it makes me think over the years, how does that rise to the top?
That song "Be" is. It's one of those things that just has stuck with me through life. This last selection that I picked, these are really songs that aren't just great music. It's about the way I live life, or the way I want to live life, what I'm aspiring to be. And there's a line in that song: "The present is a gift, and I just want to be." And it's just about appreciating the moment that you're in, and that has stuck with me through. And honestly, that's just a brief introduction to the entire album, but it's also the title track,
of course.
And that's because I think that concept is so heavy of appreciate the moment.
Right. Yeah. When you pick tracks, over the history of this mixtape, did it influence your other Red Chuck productions?
Oh, Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where one fed the other, and I would actively go out and seek, and maybe the last couple of playlists, I hadn't had enough local artists, for
Right.
example, and so okay, well, let me dig into some artists. I'd heard the names, but I hadn't listened to them yet, and so I'd take the time. Okay, that'd be a moment. Let's go dig into their catalog and see, and then I'd find myself listening to a song from one of those bands, and that's a song that's going to make it to the playlist, and then. A lot of times, because I dug into that artist, then it would be, well, these people are great. I want to talk to them on Anywhere the Needle Drops, interview them, talk to them about their music, and so it's all one big stew of.
And that's what I love the best is that everything you do, everything you work on, feeds the whole thing. Like you can watch the narrative across, all platforms of what you put out. Personally, your work has influenced my acceptance of what's around here, and that's huge. And I hope to other people have heard things that they didn't know they knew that was in this area from your work. Eve 6, another that's a massive band, but open road song, which living in the Midwest, all of us have jumped on that country road or state highway that goes nowhere, and ripped it open, and it talks about getting to 80 miles an hour in there. Where does Eve 6 fit in your web?
That is a song. Eve 6 is one of those bands that I don't like. I like their music. I like their albums. I never necessarily would have put them at the top as a whole, but that song in particular came to me at a time I was probably in my late teens, early 20s, and in what I would describe as maybe a lonely time of my life. I hadn't figured out what I wanted to do in the world. A lot of my friends had gone off to college or whatever. I'm still living in my hometown, kind of trying to figure out the next step, going to the local community college, and spending a lot of times driving around in my car, windows down, stereo up. And that song is that. And on paper, it might sound like kind of a dark line, but there's a line in that song. It's, I don't need a girl, I don't need a friend, because my friend Lonesome's unconditional. And something about that to me is actually very empowering. It reminds me of a friend of Red Chuck Productions, local musician, Rebel Noir. When Rebel came on Anywhere the Needle Drops, we were discussing the concept of alone time and how that's something a lot of people run away from. And Rebel said, and this is stuck in my mind since the moment she said it, I can see her saying it to me in that room, I like my own company. And I was going through a moment in my life where I was spending a lot more time on my own because of various things. And I remember being like, it's okay to be alone. In fact, it's empowering to be alone. It's good to have people, of course, but
totally.
Yeah.
Has there been points where the mixtape has intertwined with life, and somehow you're sending a message out to the universe by the songs you picked about what's going on at that time period?
Sure. Yeah. Certainly, when we release the tapes, one of the little tags that I like to do in the blog post is the subject line is a lyric from one of the songs. And oftentimes the lyric that I choose will be something pretty relevant to what's going on in my world at that time. Right. So, and there have been some rougher moments in my life the last couple of years, and I was looking through some of the old mixtapes from the last year or two, and there are definitely some lines in there like, oh, I know exactly what I was saying to the world with that. So 100%. What I'm feeling translates into what I'm listening to, or maybe it translates into the interpretation of what I get from what I'm listening to. Maybe that song will mean something different to me in 10 years, but in that moment, that's what it said to me, and so I will pull that line out and throw that as the subject line.
Totally.
Yeah.
Loudon Wainwright.
Yeah.
Wow. As this playlist played yesterday, when I was getting through the whole thing once just to see the big picture, like that's a right turn after Eve 6. But the swimming song.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It's about life. It's about we have the option. We can stand on the shoreline where it's safe and comfortable, and that is a choice you can make in life of a way you want to live your life, or you can choose to dive in and take that risk, and maybe you'll get wet, maybe you'll drown. I don't know, but it's an affirmation of going for life because it's so short and fleeting, and that song means so much to me. I realize this playlist that I put together is really about life and how I want to live life, and that song says it right there. Go for that swim, take that dive.
How do you take music into your day-to-day? Because I know you have varied activities, and the schedule is to detail. Like if you catch a glimpse of Justin's calendar, it's down to the minute maybe.
It is, yes.
So in that, are there times when you actually turn music on during those pockets?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I've had to, make some adjustments for that. I've had this discussion in therapy several times in the last couple of years about maybe needing to have less of a busy life. So that's something I'm exploring, considering. Maybe we'll see. Yeah. But there are moments where there's certain types of listening that apply, and there are moments where I'll catch myself maybe a little sad or frustrated with life, that sort of a thing, and at that point, it's time to maybe put away the new music exploration and go back to some old favorites, the things that make me feel good, comfortable. And I have a playlist called Turn It Up, which is kind of my go-to for that, where if I'm not quite feeling good, or if I'm feeling extraordinary, it might be to amplify that feeling. Right. But definitely if I'm in a place of a little darkness, I can turn that playlist on, and I know there's going to be a song coming on immediately that I'm going to be belting out at the top of my lungs.
What part of that does it engage inside of you compared to when you're doing the discovery part?
I think it's more emotional. The discovery part can be very intellectual. I will certainly find artists where I find an emotional connection and become a fan, and the music will become something meaningful to me on an emotional level. But so often I'm maybe exploring a new artist strictly because I've heard something about them, or something has driven me to them intellectually. And so that is more of a practical practice, and then the other stuff is where it's just kind of the fulfilling thing. And those two, there are two things constantly crashing against each other. Yeah.
Where do you find yourself on the rail, as we say at a concert? Like what show was the last time you were being bent over the front rail and trying to get more of the artist?
Man. So Drive By Truckers, one of my longtime favorite bands. They recently did a tour to celebrate, I don't even know what the year is, but some epic anniversary of the Southern Rock Opera album, which is this epic two disc album exploring, quote, the Southern thing, which has so many meanings politically, culturally, musically. And so they did this tour where they played that album in its entirety. And I can still put myself in the room I got tickets for various local shows for that tour, and I can still put myself in the room, particularly at Bell's in Kalamazoo when they played, and I was right there up front taking that all in, and it was such a beautiful time just hearing those songs that I'd known for so long, and hearing them now evolved. I've evolved, the band's evolved, so therefore the music has evolved. And I was right up there.
That touches on something that the two of us, have been working on, a merger of Theory One Entertainment and Red Chuck Productions.
Yeah.
And we would like to bring your work into our sphere and amplify it even larger. But we've been grinding on it and planning for months, both together. You've continued to keep your normal interview schedule for Anywhere the Needle Drops. But, the first time that you and I stepped out of kind of the production role and the gathering and putting into place and making sure that the message that we put out is correct, we ended up at a bar in Goshen seeing a band that we enjoy.
Yep.
We've been on the show as our first guinea pigs as a band.
Yeah.
But the early, and that seems to be a through line in the area. and the friendships.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, another friend of ours, Andrew Fisher, found some recordings from way back, and it was Abby Thomas, the early, and then Andrew Fisher's quartet.
Oh, wow.
On the live recording. So it was interesting to, I'm all these acts pop out of nowhere in my sphere. If I hear them from you or we go see them.
Yeah.
But the early, speak on just how they've been around, and again, they've grown as much as the scene has grown.
Sure, yeah. So many, it's hard to tell now because I'm so immersed in the scene, but there was a time where a lot of the names of the bands in the area were names on a piece of paper or on a website or something. Yeah. And I remember it was, there used to be a festival very briefly in South Bend. The first year, maybe 2 years, it was actually called South by South Bend. And then there might be a large organization that sent a cease and desist regarding that. So they altered names to Sounds by South Bend. And then eventually it sort of melded into this new thing that happened for a couple of years called the Riverfront Music Festival. And I remember exploring bands through that entire arc of that festival process and the people behind that as it evolved from one thing to the next. And I think it may have been at the last River Lights Music Fest, the early played. And I think at that time they were a 3-piece rock and roll outfit. You listen to them play and they're just like good old fashioned rock and roll with 3 people. And then I think maybe I kind of lost track a little bit at some point, and then I went and saw them live, a few years later, and they had grown and they had evolved. And suddenly they're working in these sounds you hear from bands like Grateful Dead and Steely Dan and that sort of a thing. And they had added a female vocalist for a while, and new members had come in, and they've just evolved into this. You see them now, and they are such a solid unit with some of the best musicians in the area playing amazing music. And it's just, they are one of the flagships of this music scene, for sure.
And no venue slows them down. It's like they're playing like they're doing an arena at the local record store.
The
other night we were able to go, when we did get to see them, it was definitely a sigh of relief that we all had seen something arrive. With being there. What other work are you putting in the local scene that's we haven't touched on?
Wow. I mean, the biggest thing, it all boils down to telling the story of the scene, whether it's the podcast, whether it's writing articles for the newspaper or for my own website. Right. I spent most of last year hanging out with Abby Thomas and the Crazy Hearts as Abby recorded her new album, toured on her new album, and went through the cycle of being nominated for awards and going to Nashville. And so I got to go and watch that story firsthand. And, kind of I'm just finding my way into more and more rooms to telling the story. And I feel like I'm becoming a part of it all, and it feels really good because I love this music scene so much, and I just want to help build it and elevate it.
That's the mechanisms of the ecosystem. I could see on your Insta post how you were in the room for the awards as Justin. Yeah. Because once you end up in pictures at something and you're not the one taking the pictures and telling the story, then you're all of a sudden a part of the story. But at the same time, you've got to disconnect and figure out how you're going to bundle that up and report it.
There were definite moments during that whole process where I looked at the band and I said, I should be shooting this right now. I am being a terrible documentary filmmaker at this moment, but I was embraced by that group so much. And it felt like at some point it became something other than me just a guy with the camera chasing them around,
there's a lot of space in this region to the fertileness is incredible for music, and I'm really excited to see that people's instincts are correct, and the growth is everywhere around us. That brings us to this one. This one caught me. Andrew W.K. Music is Worth Living For, which I instantly agreed with the title. But in playing it, I was like, holy cow, it was a different side of you, which even the intro for Anywhere the Needle Drops, the band...
Hero Jr.
The first time I got it from you, like, Oh, that's a side of Justin I didn't know.
Yeah.
But a little more rock on this one.
I got some rock and roll. No.
Yeah.
So I grew up on my parents' vinyl collection. My earliest memory is hefting a record up onto the turntable in my mom's bedroom at her house when I was a child. I distinctly remember playing music in that room, going through that vinyl, playing records, and a lot of what was in that record collection was either my mom's or it was there were records that were left behind by my dad, who was big into rock, and so I was crafted at an early age to love, what we now refer to as classic rock, so a lot of the Southern rock era and some of that heavier stuff. And so that's always a piece of me, probably more so than any other genre, really. And Andrew WK was an artist I was always aware of. I remember the Party Hard album and that back in the day, but it was over there. Like, oh, that's a cool song. And, I wasn't really following him too much. And then one day, for whatever reason, I saw a video of him performing the song on this mix, Music is Worth Living For, on Conan O'Brien. And I just remember seeing, I think there were 8 members of the band, all kind of grizzled and just kind of just crammed on the stage, 4 guitars, and just belting out, singing at the top of their lungs, almost to like a religious ecstasy, just delivering this beautiful message. Music is worth living for. And I immediately stopped, after the video ended, I immediately went to Andrew WK's website and bought a ticket for the show in Chicago that was coming up.
Wow.
And I went and saw it, and I went by myself. I'd never seen him live before. I knew very little of his catalog. And I walk in there, and I find my way down to the floor, and I'm kind of hanging out, waiting, and someone, I don't know, I happened to mention to someone that's my first show, and they pat me on the back and they said, "Welcome to the congregation." And what followed was exactly that. Just this massive rock and roll experience, jumping up and down, some moshing, but, everyone just together celebrating music. And it was beautiful. And that song means a lot to me.
In the, right out the bat, the first verse, we paid our dues getting them up off the floor. And I guess we proved you wrong, and I guess we showed them all. So much to lose, walking right out the door. Period of life where the floor is a friend that you know of lately. Like, where does music fit in rebirth of life?
I mean, it's everything. More so than any other art form, music is what I go to celebrate, to heal, to season life, and I think there's something natural or instinctual about music. I don't know that I've ever met a person that says I don't like music. Maybe I like a different kind of music, but music speaks to something internal in our souls. And so for me, when I need to heal, there's a song. When I need to celebrate, there's a song. When I need to have something in the background to help me get through some chore, there's a song. There's a song for it all.
Yeah. Refreshments. Mekong?
Yeah.
Where's this one come from? It's definitely another left field from the last one.
Yeah. Mekong is, I would say, probably my favorite song of all time. I remember discovering the Refreshments in the era of 90s MTV, and particularly the late night alt-rock shows that they would do, where you'd find the likes of Patty Rothberg and Superdrag and all of those bands. And they had the song Banditos, which if anyone remembers it now, it's the song that's everybody knows the world is full of stupid people. So meet me at the Mission at midnight. We'll divvy up there. And I love that song. I love the video. It's fun. It was witty. It was weird. Bought the album, and that song on there, Mekong, I remember just hearing it and being so drawn to those lyrics. I mean, it's all about life and how you should live life, As cliche as it should sound, I'd like to buy another round. And if your bottle's empty, help yourself to mine.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. Here's to life. And if you ever have the chance to see them live and play that song, the moment they play that song is such a communal, wonderful moment. The entire crowd, strangers, arm in arm, singing together at the top of their lungs those lines. Thank you for your time. Here's to life. If your bottle's empty, help yourself to mine. And I think there's so much wisdom in those words, to the point where they are tattooed on my wrists forevermore. So, yeah.
Justin Flagel, Red Check Productions. It's the 5th year virtual mixtape. Check it out. Check the links. Everything will be in the bio. And here's to life.
Here's to life. Awesome. Boom. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Oh, Nick?